Welcome, Ari, to the Recovering Perfectionist on the Isolation Opportunity mini-series. It's great to have you here. So super quickly, Ari and I have known each other for probably 3 or 4 years now, and she's been a client of mine as a VIP and in Batshit Crazy, and she's come on retreat to Bali. And so I've had the absolute pleasure of kind of getting to know you really well, and also a bit about your business, or a lot about your business, and a bit about your amazing modalities and that sort of thing. And every time we have a session, we kind of chat about all the other things as well. And I'm like, oh my God, we need to put this on podcast because it's so good. Like, you've got so much juice to offer. So I'm super excited that we get to chat about this stuff today. And I kind of feel like I got like a session with you a few weeks ago when we started talking about this, and you wheeled out your whiteboard and everything and showed me all the things. So before we get stuck into all of that, do you want to just give us a bit of a intro about who you are and what your biz is and all of that sort of thing before we jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Claire. So, I'm Ari, and I have been in business for about 4 years now, and my official title is a creatrix transformologist and mindset mentor. But what that basically means is that I use a particular modality, which is creatrix, and I work with women who are, goal-orientated, self-aware, but really are mindful of the fact that they're frustrated because they're holding themselves back, even though they know they can be more, they can do more, they can have more, but there's just something not quite working for them, and that's where I come in. And so, that's the work I do, is really just clearing blocks and limiting beliefs and mindset crud that gets in the way of women being able to be all that they can be and live the life that they want to live. So that's the work I do.
Yeah, awesome. Just quickly, you were crackling up a little bit there. If you have got headphones, chuck them in while I ask you the next question. If you've got some, just I don't know if it'll help, but we'll see.
I have.
See if it'll go. So hopefully that was clear enough for anyone to hear. It might have just been the internet at my end, but I thought just in case, just chuck them on. So we were talking a couple of weeks ago. I think I probably got the ball rolling. Like, one day I feel like I'm the most productive I've been in months, and then the next day I just want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and cuddle the kids, and then the next minute I'm really productive, and then the next minute I'm wallowing again. And I was just on this like extreme roller coaster, which I was fine with. I was totally forgiving of myself with it, but there's been a lot of that rhetoric out there where people are doing the same sort of thing. So they're either going into the cave, and there's all this Instagram stuff about and you mentioned like there's this thing that was going around which was everywhere that week. If you still haven't done whatever, insert hobby or insert job or insert whatever, it wasn't that you never had time. And you shed some really beautiful light on that. So I just want to sort of explore. I want everyone to hear all the gold that I heard from you a couple of weeks ago when we chatted about that. So I'm just going to hand over to you and just start wherever you feel like we need to hear about why we're doing these extreme productive into the doom and gloom, death and despair stuff, and sometimes it's like 1 minute to the next, or 1 day to the next, or 1 week to the next, or whatever.
So the first thing I want to say is I absolutely hated that thing that was going around, because it was so loaded up with shame and it was such this sort of kind of like almost subtle bullying going on, and I loathe that kind of stuff. I'm all about encouragement and productivity, and so I get where they were probably trying to come from, but it doesn't help anyone. Shame doesn't motivate. Shame just like paralyzes people, right? It doesn't actually motivate anyone. So to pick up then what you were saying about like this sort of swinging back and forth between hyper productivity and curl under a blanket. And I've been doing it too. Like, I think if you ask most people, they'd be like, everyone's to some degree doing it. And I suppose the thing that is interesting for me around that is that it isn't some kind of like cop out, or that some people are like better at coping with the situation, that's why they're being hyper productive, and other people are just like lazy bums that don't get anything done. It's very much a natural kind of mental response to a really strange, stressful, weird, unpredictable situation that none of us have really ever experienced before. And so to some extent, we can't even predict how we'll respond. But what I realized when people were telling me this is like, it's a natural stress response. It's how our brains work. So our brains, we know, we've heard of the fight or flight response, right? We know that, if some stress thing happens, we gear up to ready, saber-toothed tiger jumps out of the cave, we gear up to either punch it on the nose or run away, fight or flight. It's a really simplified, actually, version of what happens though. Our brains work, our stress response is a lot more complex than that, especially women as well. We've got a whole bunch of hormones that kick in that influence how we do things in life. And so we also have a tend response and a fawn response. So the tend response is saber-toothed tiger jumps out of the cave. You can't run away because you've got little kitties there, and you can't fight it because if you get injured, like the kitties might get. So you've got to tend. So you tend to kind of cover and protect what's more vulnerable than you, even though you're being vulnerable. It's why women often stay in really stressful workplaces a lot longer than men will.
Right.
Because they have this tend response. So they'll actually kind of hunker down.
To look after all the other co-workers, right?
Right.
Wow.
If I leave, they'll pick on someone else.
Oh.
Right.
So true.
Right. Okay.
Oh.
So when you say, when people, and I've had these conversations with people and I've explained that, and they're just like, oh, I've just realized why I stayed in this horrible toxic workplace for like 6 months longer than I ever intended to. And I was like, yeah, well, it's natural. And we also have a response of fawn. So fawn is where there's a threat, but you can kind of placate it, calm it down, chill it out. And so that often tends to be a really trauma response as well. People who come out of domestic violence situations like that are really primed for that response because they've learnt that, I can't run away, I can't fight. So if I placate them and chill them out, I will be a bit safer and everyone around me will be a bit safer as well.
Wow.
That's why women also stay in domestic violence situations for longer. Can't leave because of the children, the pets, the
money,
right? All of those things, so many things. So all of those stress responses are natural. We're kind of wired up to do that. And when we have this crazy stressful thing of a virus that we don't know what to do, we can't see it, we can't fight it, we don't have all the answers around how to deal with it, our brain goes through these options. What option do I have? Do I fight? Do I run away? Do I tend? Do I fawn? And our brains will cycle through that until it's found this most appropriate solution. You do it. And then usually, under normal circumstances, the problem goes away, right? We resolve that situation until something else happens. We don't have that luxury at the moment because nothing's going away and it's still saying, right. So everything's still kind of in this I tried running away, that didn't work. I tried. So what then happens is our brain is just in this constant loop.
Right.
Tried that. It's still there.
Try the next one.
Loop back again. Still there. Loop back again. So it will continually go through this cycle of what option is the best one right now for this stress response. It's also exacerbated, especially for women, because women release oxytocin when they're stressed. So we get adrenaline and we get cortisone, we get all those stress hormones that we all know about. Women also release oxytocin, and oxytocin is the love hormone. It's the thing that we release when we have babies so that we can goo all over them when we're feeding them and not hate them because we're up at 3 o'clock in the morning for the 5th time in 5 minutes, right? So it's this bond, it's the bonding hormone. It's what helps us connect with, bond with our children, bond with our partners. It's, in love and all that kind of stuff. So why do we release it when we're stressed?
We're addicted to chaos? Do we like problem solving?
No, to drive us to connect with other people so that we have a network of support. So we're in a situation where our bodies are going, do I run? Do I fight? Right. Do I run? Do I fight? Do I do this? Do I do that? Nope, none of those things are right. And I'm going to keep looping through that. Plus, where's my friend? Where's my network? Where's my support? I need to reach out. I need to contact. I need to connect. Well, you're not allowed to do that because you've got to be in isolation.
Oh my goodness.
So we're in a really kind of tinderbox kind of situation at the moment where all of our stress mechanisms that we have, which normally are helpful for fighting saber-toothed tigers, are really unhelpful for modern society dealing with something like a virus.
Right. Okay, everyone feeling a bit better now, oh my God, so what do we do? When you were going through those cycle things, and I can feel, like I said before, days where I've gone, no, that didn't work, and every one of those options has been cycled through, as well as over the course of the last 2 months. It's definitely been like that as well. But can you consciously choose which one you're going to do? Is that a thing, or does your brain override that stuff anyway?
It all comes down to awareness. So it depends on how heightened your experience is in that time. So obviously, if you're being mugged, you're in complete reaction. You're not thinking, it's absolute instinct. But something like this, we can train ourselves to take a step back, because we can catch ourselves in that, oh my God, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Why is everything just feeling like too much? Oh, this is just horrible. And dive under the blanket, for example. We can check in with ourselves then, go, okay, what's going on at the moment? Why am I feeling this way? Is this the right thing for me to be doing? And sometimes it is. Sometimes, a binge session on Netflix under a blanket with some chippies is like the best thing ever. It's like,
always that's the best ever, isn't it?
That's right. Option 1, tick. So it's not necessarily that our first instinct is bad either. It's just that sometimes we can fall into these habits, and it's not always the best, because we can get to the point where it's like day 3 of Netflix binge under the blanket eating chippies, and we start to feel really like we've been dehydrated, we're feeling really sluggish, plus we've got the stress and things like that, and so it starts to compound a little bit. So that's why checking in with ourselves before we kind of go, okay, I'm under the blankie, right? Is this the best option? And sometimes it is. And sometimes we're like, you know what? We're on to day 2, probably should go at least for a walk, or might eat a vegetable, or,
or call a friend.
Or call a friend, or something that might be a better comforting, because what we're trying to do is that's that tend and hunker down stress response. And there are other tend, hunker down stress responses that behaviors that are but are a bit more helpful, like calling a friend, going for a walk with the family. That's a connecting type thing. Plus it does help burn off the adrenaline that you have, the stressed adrenaline that you kind of builds up and you get that tightness and flighty featheriness in your chest, and a little bit shaky and that kind of thing. And we're probably downing more coffee than we should at the moment as well.
Maybe
no judgment. And so it's recognizing those physical things as well. I'm feeling a bit sluggish, probably should be moving a bit more, or I'm feeling that kind of little buzz going on at the moment, maybe just going for a walk at the moment, or something like that is going to be a better way of dealing with my stress response than what I'm choosing right now.
And so you touched on it a bit before, and we talked about it at length a couple of weeks ago about the opportunity for us, and probably one of the biggest lessons to take out of this, in this whole thing, in the scope of what we're talking about now, is to be conscious about deciding, what do I need right now? Okay, I need to sit on the couch, watch Netflix, not talk to anyone, and feel sorry for myself. What do I need now? I need to eat a piece of broccoli and go for a walk. Okay, what do I need now? All those sorts of things, right? So being conscious about that decision. However, as we all know, that's easier said than done. I'll just be self-aware, because how many times do we get to the end of the day getting into bed and be like, oh shit, I still didn't do that thing I said, and I'll totally do it tomorrow. And then you get to the end of the next night and you're like, oh crap, I totally forgot to do that thing again. So what's going on there, and what's some really practical things that people can do to perhaps be a bit more aware about what they actually need, and then take the steps to do that in the immediate kind of moment where they're making that decision?
So again, and you're so right, it's easier said than done. because when we're stressed, we default to habit.
Yeah.
And so if we've got, I don't want to say poor habits or bad habits, but habits that aren't always going to be helpful in any given situation.
Yeah.
Let's just put
So
that on
diplomatic.
there. Right. Then if we're defaulting to that, that's why we're like, oh, I was promised I was going to drink more water. But if that wasn't your habit before, then you're going to default to whatever it was before,
Yeah.
which is not drinking enough water. So you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, I still didn't do that thing. So it really is about being conscious of the fact that you're trying to do, and it's not just do something. This is actually a new habit I'm trying to establish during a stressful period of time when my brain is defaulting to the easiest decision-making process it has, which is habit.
What I've always done. Yeah.
What I've always done.
Yeah.
So it then comes down to things like, setting a timer. Like before we got started, you're like, oh, I'm just going to grab a glass of water. I'm like, ooh, yes. So I went and grabbed, like my water bottle and filled it up because I was like, yes, I've not been drinking enough water. So having it sitting in front of me, I'm more inclined to drink it.
Right.
Some people go to the extent of, putting something in their phone every 30 minutes, 60 minutes to say, have you had some water kind of thing. I think it was one of the other ladies that you were interviewing. She was talking about habit stacking and putting it with other habits.
Suzanne Kohlberg.
Yes, and she was amazing. Yeah. So yes, those are really good ways of being able to try and bring those things in.
Yeah.
So that you're not, putting more stress and pressure on yourself, getting to the end of the day and beating yourself up about that on top of everything else that you're beating yourself up about. No one needs that. We don't need more stress. We need less.
Right. And one thing, like obviously we've talked a lot about the habit stuff, and one thing that you talk about a lot, I know in your biz and in your world, is the effective goal setting, and why the goal setting and the SMART goals and all that sort of stuff typically or often doesn't work, and all the, the darker side of that, which is absolutely intriguing. And for anyone who's listening or watching, go and stalk Ari and find this stuff, because it's frigging mind-bogglingly simple, but I had never even thought of a heap of this stuff. So let's just say, like, for someone who's got the next, say, couple of weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks or even like 1 week left of isolation, and then it's going back to some semblance of normal, like, what are the sort of things that, like, if I said, oh gosh, I've been in isolation for 7 weeks and I've saved all this money because I haven't been going out or buying petrol or all of this sort of thing, and now I feel like I've wasted that time. Like, what are your tips for those sort of people? Because I guarantee there's lots of us out there.
True story. I had to create tricks. I'm wasting time and missing opportunities. So, so in full disclosure, like samesies, it's such a normal thing. I think anyone who's kind of like fairly goal driven and has a lot on the go is prone to then look at the time and think of the potentiality of that time, and then do the calculations and be like, oh no, I've like missed all this opportunity.
Totally.
Wasted time. But I think it's so some of the lessons that I got that kind of came through for me when I was creating that was there's actually a huge amount of value in downtime, and I've seen a lot of it actually kind of floating around, some people coming out and starting to talk about the fact that it's been actually a really good opportunity. They haven't been doing a lot of stuff, but it's been a great opportunity for them to really connect with what's important. And I mean, you followed my work around goal setting. Like, that to me is absolutely critical. There's no point setting a goal if it's not truly, truly important in your heart of hearts. And that's often what sabotages goals, is that it's this sort of surface stuff and not really what's down in our core. So I think this has been a great time to value the fact that our productivity isn't just measured on what tangible outcomes we can look at in front of us, that we can point to stuff and go, there's that course I made, and there's the 10 bazillion posts I put out, and there's the blog times 20 that I wrote, and there's we can't point to the stuff. So sometimes there's the need to percolate ideas.
And
we
decisions.
Need to, we can absorb information. We need time to be able to synthesize that information, bring it all together and make sort of like a new kind of thing that's for us, that's our own kind of spin on things. That doesn't happen whilst you're input or output. There is a time. Kate Northrup talks about it, which is beautiful. She talks about cycles, and that's another thing I'm pretty passionate about, but she talks about not just our body cycles but our productivity cycles, and there's like fallow time. Like anyone who's a gardener knows that there's a time where you don't plant anything in the soil. You know, you just kind of nourish it and you know, maybe put stuff in, but you're not growing anything. You're just waiting for that springtime, that, you know, when it's can burst out with more energy. But without nourishing the soil and looking after it,
nothing's going to grow there anyway.
Like, or if it grows, it's going to be a bit kind of like munted and not that great kind of thing. So this time we have to look at it in terms of going, well, how have I nourished myself in this time? That's productivity, because it's productivity it's an investment in our future productivity.
Which sounds wanky, but it's 100% true, right?
Right, completely. And it's hard when our society is so focused on tangible outcomes of productivity. How much have you done today, rather than, you know, how many hours have you clocked, that kind of thing, rather than actually looking at what are we achieving in a bigger picture kind of approach. So yes, we can feel like we've wasted time, but I think it's a good time. Like if you've got a week to go and you're going back and you're having that like, oh my gosh, I've wasted all this time, my advice would be to sit down and do a bit of an audit on exactly what you've done. And I'll use an example separate from this one. The year that I lost my baby, I had an absolute crisis of what a write-off of a year. I lost her in February, and so I really got to the end of the year and just went, oh, all of my goals and plans that I had all planned out and it was going to be amazing, just nothing happened. And I think a lot of people would be experiencing that right now. You know, January 2020, like what an awesome year. 2020, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be an amazing year, right? 2020 vision, it's going to be amazing. And they've got to this point and they're just like, my whole year's been wrecked, like what a waste. So what I did, so at the end of the year, I sat down and I literally documented everything that I had done, courses I'd taken, things I'd studied, content I'd produced, stuff I had achieved, small and big. And it was this massive list of stuff that I had done in what I had initially thought was the biggest write-off of a year that I could ever have had, that I just spent, you know, just was horrible. Like it was just like a horrible year. But looking back at it, I was like, oh, hang on. Even with everything being horrible, there was some really amazing stuff that I've been able to accomplish and do. And some of it was not tangible. Some of it was mindset and personal emotional growth and all that kind of stuff. And I think we've got to value that, because that emotional growth has set me up for years to come as well. And so I think when we look back, if we've got a week to go, look back and go, well, what have I achieved? Where have I grown emotionally? Where have I nourished myself? Where I probably was desperately in need of nourishment because I was go and never stop, right? And then all of a sudden I was forced to stop. And that was actually a good thing. And really checking in on that and valuing it. Actually taking the time to go, actually, that's really good. That was a good thing that I had that. And then, you know, if you still kind of go, you know what, there's still some things I wouldn't mind getting done. Well, like a week's a long time. I know it doesn't feel like it, but it's amazing what you can turn around in a week. And so you might not get the goal that you had 7 weeks ago when you just stopped, but you can get yourself back on track, get yourself back on the path, reevaluate. Does the goal even still resonate with you? Or have you gone through a transition now where you're like, actually, that's no longer important to me? In which case, isn't it good that you've not wasted 7 weeks plowing energy into something that you didn't actually want?
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think even just going, oh, shit, I should have done X, Y, Z. And if you are still attached to that and still, it is still important and you have missed out on doing that, even if you've gotten all the other stuff done, it doesn't mean that that opportunity is completely gone forever. It just means that there's some adjustments and changes that might need to be made when things go back to whatever the new normal looks like in order for it to happen. So like I feel like I've spent the last 7 weeks with my kids, and then I'm like, I should have spent more time with my kids. And I feel really quite passionately about that. And I have little moments of going like, oh, I should have like not worked as much. Not that I've done that much, but I should have, made sure I put my phone down more and been more present with them. It doesn't mean they're like, oh, well, that 7 weeks is done and dusted, so I can't do it now. It just means that like, that's really helped me connect with, yeah, shit, that's really important to me. And would I rather like say, oh, well, I didn't do it for the last 7 weeks, so I won't bother changing now, or get to the end of the year and go, I did the last 7 months of the year, consciously being more present and connecting with my kids rather than whatever. Like it's not even about did I do it or have I done it yet or whatever, and ticking a box about during this period. It's connecting with the why and the reason and the value and the purpose of it, and making adjustments going forward. Like that's even more important, I think, to go
completely.
Oh, shit. Like
completely.
connecting with that and then making changes for the rest of your life, not just for like the last couple of months.
Exactly. And that's what I mean. I'm all about that sort of long-term change and long-term sort of resilience, that, so that if something else happens around the track, we're geared up and more empowered for things as well. And you're right. It's like, oh, I didn't bond with my kids as much as I should have. Oh, well, I should probably ship the kids off then,
Yeah.
I mean,
I got a D on that, so I won't try anymore.
Right. It's crazy. But what it does is it makes us go, okay, well, if it really is important, and we're not just finding things to beat ourselves up about.
Yes.
Because boy, we can do that too.
Aren't we good
Oh, see, I'm still not good enough because I didn't hang out with my kids perfectly. So as long as it, if it's genuinely something we're like, okay, that is really important.
Yeah.
That's where we then go, right, how can I build consciously into my life
now
ways that I can connect with my kids? How can I schedule time where it's like, that is, mummy daughter time, or mummy son time, or that's, movie night, or like that's the baking session that we're all going to do together, or like we're going to cook dinner together, or go for walks every week, or whatever. And consciously look at what are the things that are important, what are those times. And sometimes they're just a lot of people like rediscovering puzzles, and they're like, oh my gosh, I've just been really enjoying doing puzzles with my kids.
I know.
Great. So maybe Sunday afternoon is just puzzle time with the kids. All the devices get turned off and you just do a puzzle.
Hang out a puzzle.
Right. So I think it's very much about, and it comes back to what we've been saying the whole time, making conscious choices. Being aware enough about something, checking in with ourselves and going, is this important? Yes, it is. What conscious choice can I make then going forward to help me, support me to actually have more of this in my life?
Amen. I just want to let that land. I've got another really cool thing I want to chat about as well, but I feel like that's the message, that it's not forever, and you can make the little changes and keep this is the biggest thing for me. Like, this is such an opportunity for us to learn from, or continue, or do the stop start continue thing of what it sort of taught us. And I think there is this amazing opportunity for us to actually stock take really realistically in a very pragmatic way, because we've lived it for the last couple of months. Well, was there stuff that I was doing and spending my time, energy, money and whatever on that actually doesn't frigging matter to me anymore, whether it's something I've been doing out of habit or obligation or pleasing someone else or whatever. And now it's been taken away, and they're like, well, I don't want to start doing that stuff again. I have a little tantrum, like, oh, I'm not doing it. I'm throwing my toys out of the cot if you even ask me to. It's not a thing anymore. And like you said, there's things that like I feel like I've reconnected with, and I know a lot of people. You mentioned puzzles. So many people of my friend, I bought a couple online, like secondhand, and so many of my friends have been like, I've been to 3 shops and all the puzzles are sold out. And I'm like, that is the best news ever. It means that people are doing something with their hands and their brains, and probably with someone else in their household. Like that is the best news ever. And I don't want to stop doing that. I've started painting. I don't want to stop doing that just because we're going back to normal, and I'm not negotiating on that. Like, I will find something else that I used to do that used to take up more of my time to not go back and start doing again, because I've filled it with this gorgeous stuff. It's not just the 2 months. So
definitely.
Got a bit excited there. I think this is so cool. This stuff just blows my mind. So the other thing you touched on before, and in a few weeks ago, you and I had a massive conversation, and this has come up probably 6 or 7 times with different people, and certainly in the Isolation Opportunity series, is about that cycle. So you mentioned, and we were talking about If you think about cycles in whether it's a project, your business, your relationship, your family, your body, your self-love, your house, your blah, 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 all the things, there's that summer, autumn, winter, spring kind of cycle. And you mentioned before, like it's fallow, you've got to let it, sit. You might, put some fertilizer in, and then you might start putting seeds. I don't know. I'm not a gardener. But whatever you do to make things grow, and then there's the time when the sun and the rain does its thing, and then it grows, and then you harvest, and then you reap the rewards, blah, blah, blah. Yep. And what I thought was really interesting that you said a few weeks ago, that I guess I knew, but I'd never heard it articulated how you said, was that in different parts of your world, you can be at a different season. So you're not always in autumn in your business and your body and your relationship at the same time.
Yep.
So you can be in autumn with your business and spring with your relationship and yada, yada, yada. But also that within those segments, there's also little seasons. So you can be working on one project within your business and you're in this season, and another project in this season, and something that's a monotonous, everyday, business as usual thing in another season. And so it kind of feels like a bit of a juggling act. But when you're conscious of that, and since I've been more conscious of knowing that since we chatted, I can feel that. And it's like this whole new level of permission to go well, why isn't that working over there? This is humming. This thing over here is this is a machine. And that thing over there is just dead in the water. What is going on? And actually going, well, that's okay. That's winter. That project over there is winter. It's in winter. We're cool.
Yeah.
Throw a bit of, I don't know, bird seed over there, whatever you do for winter. And make sure it doesn't get a frost. Just make sure it doesn't get frost.
Yeah.
And then over here, this one's in spring, and I'm just pumping all my rain and all my love into it and whatever needs to happen. And that actually feels really abundant.
Yes.
To be able to give permission to various tiny little wee segments within bigger segments, and be okay with everything kind of having that flow of its own.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that it's important to also, with that, to sort of, we can get caught up in the juggle, like what you said. And it's really important to know that, it doesn't have to be a juggle. And I think I shared with you the other day that I create it's a juggle, because it was a bit in my head.
That's right. It did come up, didn't it?
And it's you don't have to juggle, and you can't juggle with one ball. So you can put stuff down, and all of a sudden you're not juggling. It's not a juggle anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's about addressing. So when it does start to feel like a juggle, when it does start to feel like, oh, there's all these moving parts, being able to just, what you've been saying just then is being able to go, okay, that's cool, that's sort of sorting itself at the moment, this needs more attention, this needs something else, and really just kind of shifting your energy where it's most productive to shift it. And I do a lot of training, and it's not my area of absolute expertise, but it's such a powerful tool to use around using your cycle as well, of that sort of, resting, in that winter's phase of rest. You need a few more calories, you need more sleep, and you need to do less exercise in that phase, because it's at that rest period. And so don't force yourself to do that. But what's great about that is that it is awesome for reflecting on where you're at, looking back over your books, going internally and thinking about what's important, and connecting with your emotions more. That's, for me, I'm a really focus kind of person. And I sometimes struggle to connect with what is emotionally going on with me until I hit that season, because that's when I can generate the emotions a little bit more. They come a bit more to the surface, and I can actually feel things more and go, okay, it's this, or it's this, or it's this. So it's still productive. It's just a different kind of productive, because we give ourselves the task to do in that time that suit that energy. And when we come into spring, absolutely hammer things. When we hit that summer phase of our cycle, business, whatever, that's when we go and network. That's when we go and connect with people. That's when we go and do all of the juicy sort of interpersonal stuff, because our hormones and our energy is peak performance time, right? You'll be more attractive to clients in that phase than any other phase of your cycle. And so it's not about you don't do anything in the, oh, I've got my period, put pause on my whole life kind of thing. It doesn't work like that. It's like, what's going to be the most productive thing to do with this type of energy?
That doesn't feel like a push.
And so it's about gearing things and working in balance with that, rather than it's just like on or it's off.
Yeah. Love it.
We're not like that. Women especially, that's not what we are. We have cycles. We phase in and out of things, and if we can kind of move with that, what ends up happening is we have more time off and more productivity.
Hello.
Right. Exactly. Because it's about being efficient.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why would you try and do something that's in really inefficient way? Like, why try and network and be, all bubbly personality and attractive personality type tendencies if we're in a phase where that's not we don't have outward energy, and so we turn up and it feels fake because it's forced.
Totally.
And everyone's just like, oh, this kind of feels a bit off.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't work anyway, and you feel exhausted by it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah,
it's all right. Thanks. We just had some groceries delivered. It's all very exciting. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you can totally feel it. And being an introvert as well, I definitely feel there's times during an emotional or a physical or a mental cycle where I feel like, yep, bring it on. I'm ready to talk to the people. I'll stand up and I'll like be the center of attention. That's fine. And there's times where I'm like, oh, I don't even want to talk to the checkout chick, and I know that my delivery and my brain function is different at those times. And I know when I'm on and when I'm not on. And I'm pretty sure it's fairly obvious to everyone else as well, right? So
completely.
Like you said, the more that you can actually just have the awareness of like, even if it's just, why am I feeling like this today? What season am I in? And it doesn't have to be an academic, like, well, it feels this, so it's cold, so it's blah, blah, blah. Like you just feel into it, right? Oh, this feels like spring, brilliant, bring it on. Or this feels like winter, I'm going back to bed with this project or whatever.
Yeah.
And adjust accordingly and give yourself the permission. And permission is something that obviously comes up in every single conversation we talk about on the Recovering Perfectionist, is the permission to feel whatever you need to feel and to do whatever you need to do respectfully and with consideration of everything that's going on around you, but not at the detriment of yourself and your own projects and what's important to you and all of that sort of thing. So having the self-awareness and then having the mechanisms and the support and accountability and practical tools or whatever it is to actually give yourself the permission to take the action that you need to take is kind of the whole idea, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think that comes up then with permission is why it's so powerful, is because permission really is just the name we give to the beliefs that allow us to do what we need to do.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's such a powerful thing is because, whether it's permission or not, it sums up the things that are having a belief that I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to feel that way. I'm not allowed to have that, or I can't have it all. Or if I can't be greedy and want more than what I already have. And those beliefs, they're ingrained. They're in our DNA in many cases. There are epigenetics of that have helped to keep us safe, but are now just hindering our growth, our accomplishments, our relationships, things that we desire, that we want to go after, but we don't feel that we're allowed to because of the beliefs that we have. Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm not allowed to because other people. Like, yes, but honestly, there's so much going on in ourselves that we don't believe we're allowed to have for various reasons. And that, that's the work I do a lot, is really understanding and finding what's the belief that you hold that makes you that you can't do this. Because it's that belief. And yes, we can talk about giving ourselves permission, and that's great on a conscious level, and go, I'm going to give myself permission for this. But really, that's a very it can be a bit of a band-aid thing, and okay, I'll give myself permission, but it works for that day, and then the next day when you're not feeling so great, and then you beat yourself up
back into the thing.
And you're back into it. So then women get caught in a cycle of, I'm going really well, I'm improving, and all of a sudden I'm back where I started started my personal development journey. Why is that? And the reason is because all of that growth is conscious growth. It's you have to work every day at it. And that's not to invalidate it at all. It's really important work to be done. But for it to be permanent, for it to be transformation rather than just incidental change that can change back at any point. Change can change back at any point. Transformation, you're done. Like there's no way that caterpillar that turned into a butterfly is turning back into a caterpillar.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking transformation, not just change. Change can flick back and forth. If we want that change to become transformation, we have to underpin it with beliefs that are going to form a firm foundation to support them, support that transformation. And that's where we then need to dig a bit deeper and actually look at what those beliefs are and changing them so that we can move forward. And yes, permission's great. It's a starting point, and it's important work to do. But when you catch yourself in that cycle, you have to then start going that next layer deeper.
And we've had lots of chats about this, and the work you do with the creatrix modality as well is so interesting, that often when we have these conscious beliefs and these conscious ways of life, then eventually you get to a thing where when you realize what the actual beliefs are, it has nothing to do with what you thought it was. The things that you thought were completely not related are 100% the same core belief, just rearing its ugly head in a couple of different places.
Exactly. Manifesting itself in a few different places. And then when you actually then have someone who's a bit more objective that can look at it and go, so you know how you're doing this here? You know that's why you're doing this over here at the same time. And they're like, oh, but they're completely unrelated areas. It's like, but it's not the areas that's related. It's the belief that you hold. Beliefs are what guide our decision making. And they're the thing about beliefs is we can talk about emotional baggage and people can be quite aware of that. Beliefs are tricky little buggers,
aren't they?
Because they're our beliefs. They're how we perceive the world. So we sometimes can't even see that's that we go, oh, but this is how the world is. And someone goes, no, it's not. I'm like, yes, it is. This is how it is. It's like, no, I believe that the world is like this. And all of a sudden we have a realization that our perception of how something is just a belief. And it can help us or it can be a pain.
Exactly. I love the tangents that we go on in these conversations. I think they're so important, and I hope they're really helpful for everyone else, as they always are for me. We might wrap it up there. I feel like there's been so many juicy tips and nuggets and that sort of thing, but I guess if you can just wrap us up with the top kind of takeaways, like people who are listening or watching, what would you say are the number 1 or 2 or 3 things that that they can do to either get in sync with that cyclical thing, or to give themselves a break, or to make any sort of lasting changes out of this opportunity, and especially through the eyes of all of us recovering perfectionists who are trying to get the shit out of our own way, and use this time as a really great opportunity rather than a shit fight.
So the first thing would be to take the time to check in with what you have actually accomplished, and not fussing about, oh, it wasn't perfect, I didn't grow my multi-million-dollar business in 7 weeks, what's wrong with me? But actually just look at what did I achieve in this time.
Nice.
And give ourselves that space to actually check in and really take stock of exactly how much we have accomplished. And sort of, I suppose, secondly, but related to that, is checking in with them what is important. You know, those things that we've sort of suddenly realised actually don't matter, or those things that we suddenly realise are actually, that's really good and I want more of that in my life. And in checking in around that stuff, then aligning your life and aligning how you do things to that more. So if you've discovered things that you really love, how do you bring that more into your life? If you've discovered things that actually this doesn't do it for me anymore, how do you show at the door? So I think that they're probably the 2 main things.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ari. It's always
You're welcome.
So gorgeous chatting with you. I love your insights to all of those things. I won't even recap it because it was like a list as long as my arm. And you're so good at this stuff. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to wrap up the recording in a sec, but before I do, we'll put this in the show notes and everything, obviously, but how can people get in touch with you what's the easiest way for them to stalk you around the internet?
Easiest way to stalk me would be on my Facebook business page and my Instagram page. So
Awesome.
I'm at Polish Your Sparkle on my Instagram page, and I am Ari Powell Empowerment is the little end bit for my Facebook business page.
Awesome, beautiful. And we'll put those links in the Facebook recording as well. Until next time, my gorgeous, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap up that recording right now. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. I'm Claire Riley. It's been an absolute pleasure presenting this show for you. If you would like to stay connected, I do run a beautiful online Facebook group community called The Recovering Perfectionists. Pretty easy to find us. We're a group of several thousand over on Facebook, so come and have a look. And if you've got any suggestions about the show, if you love it, I would love you to head over to the iTunes podcast tab and give us a rating and review. And as always, I'd love to hear your suggestions about anyone who you think we should have on the show or any topics that you'd love us to cover. I hope you're really great, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.